The meeting's live.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'd like to welcome members and officers to this Cabinet meeting, and also welcome anyone that's watching us this evening via our YouTube channel. Before the meeting starts, I would like to invite the committee member and scrutiny manager to explain how proceedings will work. James.
Thank you, Chair. So quickly, I'll just run through the officers joining us remotely this evening. If you can just confirm that you can hear us and we can hear you. So Naranata Katavu.
Present.
Thank you. Ian Cooper.
Yes, I can hear you. Good evening.
Thank you. Sarah Kingsley.
Yes, present.
Andrew Mills.
Yes, present.
Chloe Hipwood.
Yes, present.
Thank you. And Nigel Smith.
Yes, present.
And we've got Lewis Franklin on IT support. Thank you. So speaking, if a member wishes to speak, they should use the speak button located on the microphone unit. The microphone will light up green and the chair will be alerted of your request to speak. When the chair invites you to speak, your microphone will be made live and will turn red, at which point you can speak. When requested to vote, voting will be via the yes, no, abstain buttons on your microphone unit. When your vote has been cast, your respective voting button will turn red. Details of how members voted will be shown on the screens around the room, and the result will be visible on the YouTube stream. Members and officers are required to wear masks when standing or moving around the room or the building. Masks can be removed while seated. Are there any questions? No, I will now hand back to the chair, Councillor Elizabeth Dennis-Harburg.
Thank you very much. Okay, so first item is apologies for absence. I've got apologies from Councillor Gary Grindle. And although deputies don't have to formally submit apologies to these meetings, we've also had apologies from Ian Mantle, who usually joins us. Are there any other apologies from other executive members? Yeah. No. Okay, excellent. In that case, next item is the minutes from the meeting of the 25th of January 2022. I'd like to propose that we take as read and approve these as a true record of the meeting of Cabinet held on the 25th of January 2022. Could I please have a seconder?
Happy to second.
Lovely. Comments? No. In that case, can we move to the vote, please, James?
Chair, that motion's carried.
Thank you very much. Okay, item number 3, notification of other business. I have none. Item number 4, Chair's announcements. In accordance with council policy, this meeting is being audio recorded as well as filmed. The audio recording will be available on the NHDC website and the film recording via the North Herts Council YouTube channel. Members are reminded that this council has declared a climate emergency. This is a serious decision and means that as this is an emergency, all of us, officers and members, have that in mind as we carry out our various roles and tasks for the benefit of our district. More details are included on the agenda front sheet. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item, and the detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under the Chair's announcements on the agenda. Item number 5, public participation. There is no public participation tonight. Item number 6, items referred from other committees. So the first item I'm going to take is item 6A, which is a referral from the Hitchin Area Committee, which Councillor Ian Albert is going to present.
Cheers, thanks, Chair. And I wanted to come here to obviously to ask for authority for some further work to be done involving members, officers, the local community, and the Hitchin Town Twinning Association about developing the possibility of a further twinning arrangement with Hitchin, with the community of Ironshwacko in Ghana. I think it's worthwhile saying, obviously there are a number of links that already exist between I think parts of Hitchin and Ironshwacko through some of the work that Humanitas has been doing. A number of the schools already, as you'll see from the report, are already operating with twinning arrangement. And indeed, I think it was the get my head rather, the primary school were going to be doing a visit there, which obviously didn't happen due to COVID. I think it's worthwhile saying in asking for cabinet's or authority is there's probably a couple of things I'd like to sort of say add additionally to that is, as part of that, it would be good, and I think perhaps obviously liaising with officers to see if we can actually find from somewhere deep buried in the archives the actual original signed twinning agreements that we made. Presumably it was the Hitchin Urban District Council made with Bingen and Nuit Saint Georges some long time ago. It would be good actually to see those and actually to sort of publicise those. But also it does seem to me in general terms, and I think we've seen with the terrible situation that's going on in Ukraine at the moment, but also in a post-Brexit world, I actually do believe that us being as a town, but also I think the wider district being outward looking is really important, and I do think there is maybe a role, and I'm obviously looking at Councillor Billing here, maybe for the community engagement team to think about how maybe some of the town twinning arrangements can be improved and indeed even maybe extended sort of elsewhere as well. I think that outward looking part of the things that we do is important, and I think is becoming increasingly important in what is a dangerous and difficult world at the moment. So I'd like to move this report and the recommendation here, and asking obviously for Cabinet's authority to take those further next steps. I think the decisions do lie with the Hitchin committee, but obviously we do need some input from members, officers, not obviously the wider community as well in terms of this. But I think there is some wider work there generally about twinning and twinning arrangements that may be valuable for the rest of the district where there are a number of existing twinning arrangements going. But I know that have been meetings taking place, to see how, because a lot of the twinning committees are aging and do need, if they are to continue, probably it's a real boost of younger members. And we'd certainly see this is one of the initiatives that we actually can actually really help to develop the Hitchin Town Twinning Association in some slightly different directions that maybe it has done over the last sort of 60 years. So move the report, Chair. Happy to obviously pick up any questions and comments, and obviously asking for Cabinet hopefully to support the recommendation. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you very much. I can see that Judy's come in first, so we'll go to Judy.
Thank you very much. I fully support the proposal on the table. I also support Ian's comments about looking a bit wider and a bit further about the purposes and remit of our twinning arrangements, because I think they started, and certainly when I was first involved in anything to do with our twinning with Bingen, particularly, and Mainz, which the county council is twinned with, the whole region area in which Bingen resides. Post-war, not that I was there post-war, but I believe that from the point of view of the German links that we have, it was actually quite an important emotional link for those places in Germany, and they always referred to the past and reparations, if you like, in all the events I was involved with. So I never got involved with the wilder kind of social setups of town twinning. And I think that they have, to some extent, possibly moved us away a little bit from the original intentions. And if the community engagement team and I and Keith can do anything to move us back to, and this has to be the best possible moment for it in the dreadful situation that we find ourselves in, I think that would be very good. Now, we're talking here about a twinning arrangement with Africa, but I happen to be going to Berlin next week, which I'm very excited about, on my first visit as a dual national. But having been brought up through the Cold War, and the Cold War being the entire backdrop of my childhood, suddenly finding myself faced with the possibility of another Cold War makes me realise how terribly important these links and friendships and understandings are. So anything that we can do, obviously we can't pour huge resource into it, but we can certainly be looking at the structures that we have, the ways in which they can be developed, and bringing to life in a more meaningful way some of the links that we already have as well. Thank you, Chair.
That was excellent. Thank you very much, Judy. Ruth.
Thank you so much, Chair. And just want to endorse everything that's been said, and just to say that I was both surprised and delighted to see this item on the agenda. I've been involved in the Twinning Association in Royston for many years and have been to all the twin towns, France, Germany and Spain. And I was involved as a teenager in my local town in East Sussex with a twinning arrangement. And I've seen many young people really benefit from the sports links, the musical links, the cultural links, the language links. And I think in a global world, the more we understand one another, the better. And I think so. I wholeheartedly endorse this. I'd also say that my own daughter was involved in a British Council trip to Ghana and found it fascinating. And it was when she was about, I think, 15, and found it of great value in terms of understanding and experiencing a different culture. And so I think it does promote global understanding, and I wholeheartedly support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So does anybody else wish to speak on this? Nope, I think we had a great discussion on it as well at Hitching Committee. So I'm pleased that we've brought it here, and we could potentially take it forwards, subject to what Cabinet colleagues decide. So the recommendation that we have is to authorise further work to be done involving members, officers, and the local community and the Hitchin Town Twinning Association. Could I have a proposer for those recommendations?
Well, I think
I think you already did, really. Yeah. Can I have a seconder?
I thought I, by implication, did say.
You did. I'm just reading my script for clarity.
Okay, so could I formally and not by implication now second?
No. Yes. In that case, can we move to the vote, please, James?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So item 6B is the referral from overview and scrutiny and finance audit and risk on the performance management measures, which are proposed to take with item 7. The second referral from scrutiny on the shared waste service governance will be taking with item 12. And then the final referral from scrutiny on green space management strategy, I'll take with item number 10. Okay, so moving onwards, item 7, performance management measures 2022 to 23 council delivery plan. I think Mr. Ian Cooper is going to present that to us.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. So as you'll be aware from previous meetings and previous reports, both to this committee, to Cabinet and to overview and scrutiny, those have set the framework for what we're trying to achieve with the council delivery plan. So this is the actual document, and it is Appendix A, the sort of the final version for you to approve this evening, albeit that I believe this is a living document that will evolve during the year, both through your comments on it and also in your delegation of the role to overview and scrutiny to monitor and to sort of interrogate it on your behalf. It builds on the council plan to give a list of key projects that the council will strive to deliver over the current year. Milestones are provided for each of the projects, and I see these as being especially important for those projects that will span more than 1 year. It gives a sort of timeline about what we'll achieve during the current year, as well as what will be going on in future years as well. You will see that for each of the projects in the appendix, it also incorporates risks, risk mitigation and performance indicator. The intention being is it provides a complete picture in one place, rather than the 3 reports we've had previously, some of which have gone to Finance Audit and Risk Committee, and 2 of them have gone to overview and scrutiny, but have been separate reports. I think in bringing all that together, there has been a need to keep it concise and to lose a bit of detail that might have been in the previous reports. And in Appendix B, it does detail those risks and performance indicators that have been previously monitored and looked at that will no longer be reported at a corporate level, albeit that most of those will now fall down to being monitored at a service level. And that same appendix does detail why that's the case and provide some justification for that, just for a complete picture. So that is a brief summary of the report and the appendices. And as you'll see, the recommendation is for you to adopt the delivery plan, and that you ask Overview and Scrutiny to monitor progress on a quarterly basis and provide feedback and comments on progress to you on that same frequency.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ian. So do we have any comments or questions for Ian on this? Yes, Ian, Albert.
Yeah, I support, and I think it's a really welcome change. It's a nuance here in some ways, but I think whilst obviously totally recognising the role for scrutiny in monitoring this, that in terms of it being the council's delivery plan, and recognising that scrutiny will come with recommendations, I think it's really important, obviously, that Cabinet itself doesn't solely just rely on scrutiny saying something to us as part of this report, and that we actually do see this document and the amendments, notwithstanding whatever scrutiny may or may not, recommend and refer to us after their considerations, because I think there is a very much a role for the Cabinet to actually make sure that this plan is being driven forward. So whilst recognising the role for scrutiny in doing that monitoring, I think it's important that Cabinet do see this paper, notwithstanding anything that scrutiny may choose to do or recommend to us.
Yeah, no, I think I'm minded to agree with that, and I'd almost like to see this as a quarterly report to Cabinet as well, just to ensure that we have as much internal scrutiny and awareness on what's going on and how these various projects are tracking along with things. I know that we all look at things obviously at our individual portfolio areas and in other strategic meetings, but Cabinet meetings sometimes provide you with a bit more of that laser focus and clarity. So I think that would be something that's worth noting, and if we could take that forward. Anybody else? Nope. Okay. In that case, could I have a proposer for this item?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Yeah, happy to propose. I think I'm happy to second it, unless anybody else has a burning desire to do that. No, lovely, great. James, can we have a vote, please?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Just scroll to the next report. There we go. Lovely. Item number 8 is the third quarter investment strategy, capital and treasury review 2021-2022. Some bloke called Ian Albert to present.
And Cabinet colleagues will be pleased that I will be very brief this evening, if possibly even non-political. As we, and I will get boring if I keep mentioning that for enough times. As we get towards the end of the year, it becomes clear that some of our capital projects will not be delivered by the 31st of March. So we've got some requests here made to move the budget into 22-23. These items are detailed in Table 2 on page 38. Table 4 on page 41 details our capital programme will be funded, includes a forecast for capital receipts during 21-22. Para 8.9 details, and to draw to your attention, a breach of the investment strategy during the quarter, which was caused by an IT downtime, an IT issue, and meant that we could not move some money out of our main bank account. Obviously, that was resolved quickly, but we need just to formally report that. Overall, we've had slightly higher balances than we're expecting, but Treasury returns have continued to be very low, around 0.1 or less. With the increase of the Bank of England base rate, returns have started to increase. Short period government returns are now up by above 0.4%. We're starting to get some interest on our current account. So there are some silver linings in the clouds at the moment, but obviously the clouds are, whilst this is positive, it's still far less than the inflation that we know that we'll and our residents are feeling at the moment. So there's some recommendations in front of you, Chair, from 2.1, 2.4. I'd like to sort of formally move those and ask Cabinet to agree them.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions or queries for Ian on this? No. In that case, is anyone happy to second the report? Judy. Yep. In that case, can I please I'll find a better phrase than in that case. I'm fed up of saying it. James, can I have the vote, please?
Chair, that motion's carried.
Excellent. Okay, item number 9, third quarter revenue monitoring 21-22. Councillor Albert.
Thanks, Chair. And again, I hope to be sort of fairly brief again, but I will make one additional thing that I'll mention at the end. The report follows the usual format with table 3 on page 69, detailing the main budget variances. Combining paragraph 8.14 and table 5 shows a forecast COVID-19 impact of around 1.5 million. This is after deducting the government sales, fees and charges contribution. Paragraph 8.13 details the general unring-fenced COVID-19 contribution, which takes the overall net impact down to around $1 million. Clearly, obviously, one of the things we've obviously been doing, obviously, we're working with Councillor Jarvis and officers. We're having some regular meetings with Stevenage Leisure, and there's been, I think, some really good progress that we've made there, and some good partnership working with Stevenage Leisure, which is welcome. And I think, obviously, actually really gives the benefit and the reason why we made the decisions we did about our leisure services this time last year. Table 6 shows the forecast impact on the general fund balance. While this shows an increase from around 8.9 to a bit over 10 million, that arises from contributions from other reserves. If they'd only been applied to exactly cover the collection fund shortfall, then the general fund balance would have reduced by around 1.2 million. It's appropriate now to release these specific reserves, but clearly, obviously, colleagues, we could only do it once. And the final thing, perhaps just to mention, and it's slightly off track, but I know obviously it's relevant to some of the considerations that we'll probably hear over the next day or two. And I know certainly we've had some questions from residents that officer colleagues are working hard to deliver the £150 rebate to residents in the bands A to D council tax for their energy rebate that we've been tasked to do by government. The aim is to make those first payments after the first direct debits go out, and that will be in early April. Those payments will be made to residents where we've got their direct debit details. We'll also be putting out some communications about this, and also communications to residents about what we need to do in relation to those where we haven't got direct debits, or we haven't got a council tax bill to pay. And we will need, obviously, to get from asking them to complete at least initially an online claim form, and we'll clearly obviously also need to work through, for those people who aren't able to claim online, how we actually do that, and make sure there's a way for those people doing it where if they haven't got that kind of IT access. So we'll be putting out some further communications about that, first of all later this week, and then some more detail in April when we look to be helping those who say where we haven't got the direct debit details for. So that's the proposals and plans that around that. And I thought I'd just mention, Chair, with your indulgence, that this evening I think might be interested to Cabinet colleagues, but I'd like to move the recommendations 2.1 to 2.3 in the report.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Do we have any comments, questions or queries for Councillor Albert on this report? No. In that case, can I have stop doing that. Can I have a seconder, please? Judy. And can we have the vote, please, James?
Chair, that motion's carried.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item number 10, which is the Green Space Management Strategy 2022 to 2027. And I have Councillor Steve Jarvis to present that report.
Thank you. So this updated Green Space Management Strategy makes some significant changes to the previous version. It puts a lot more emphasis on the environmental objectives for the management of green space, and it changes what was really an implementation plan into a strategy. It reflects the change in the way in which we're going to manage the maintenance of play areas and the considerable extra resources that the budget puts into those, managing them on a basis of doing a year-by-year assessment of where the money should best be spent in order to address the most significant issues, rather than a 5-year plan of where it's going to be spent in advance. It also importantly sets out the strategy to deal with new green space that's likely to be created from major new developments, and makes it clear that the council is looking where those make a significant contribution towards the green space of the district, and the developers are prepared to make suitable financial contributions that the council would expect to manage those spaces. I think we're all aware of cases in the past where there haven't been satisfactory management arrangements put in place. It's not our responsibility, but the residents still complain to the council when the grass doesn't get cut on other people's areas that others are responsible for. So there's an attempt to try and avoid that happening in future. There are a large number of associated documents. There's clearly linkages with the climate change strategy, with the local plan, with the work that's being done on biodiversity, with the Hertfordshire Climate Change and Sustainability Partnership, and a series of more detailed documents that sit below this, covering areas such as allotments, cemeteries, and play areas. There was quite an extensive, maybe that's not the best word, but there was a public consultation exercise that got a very large number of responses. And people told us, quite a lot about what they thought about the green belt rather than green space, which was interesting, but not entirely relevant. They told us that there was a problem with the amount of litter that people leave in our green spaces, and we're aware of that and are doing the best we can to deal with those problems. And they raised the issue about the large numbers of them, particularly from one part of the district, raised questions about the provision of allotments, which is something that we can deal with in more detail in the allotments detail document. Those relationships with other plans and strategies are set out in section 6. The whole document is in Appendix A, but it's just the words. The one that gets published will have pictures to go with it as well. So there'll be a certain amount of prettying it up, but the words are intended to be as set out here. So I'd like to propose the recommendations. I must point out that 2.1 refers to a section 7.5, but there isn't a section 7.5. It should actually refer to section 7.4. So I'd like to propose the recommendations 2.1 to 2.3, with the change to 2.1 to refer to 7.4 below rather than 7.5 below.
Excellent. I think we can take that. Does anyone have any questions for Steve? Judy?
I am entirely supportive of the Green Space Management Strategy 2022 to 2027 and its associated recommendations. But I would just like to ask the executive member if, when considering item 2.3, agreeing the delegation for creating an action plan arising from the Green Space Management Strategy, whether he might steer the service director and the Green Space Manager a little bit further than we currently do towards ensuring that ward members are consulted about important green space developments on their patches. Now, this isn't a new obsession for me. It's one that I've held for many, many years. And I've looked at some of the contrasts in the way we do this at the county council and the way we do it locally at the district. And I just think it's an area where we need to be more mindful of the need to have the locally elected members who represent those constituents involved in important decisions, not every blade of grass, not every swing replacement, but things that are likely to be controversial that we get involved at an earlier stage. Is that possible, executive member?
Sure, it is. In fact, in terms of the very latest piece of play equipment refurbishment work that's going on, which is in Priory Gardens in Royston, I know that all the Royston members have been told about that and told what is planned. I think that there are clearly some things where there needs to be consultation, and there are others where there just needs to be information. But I think it's important that we err on the side of telling people more than might be necessary rather than less. And as I said, that has worked in terms of the very last piece of activity, and I hope we can continue in that way.
Thank you very much, both. Any further questions for Steve? No, so Steve's proposed the recommendations, obviously with a slight change. Can I have a seconder, please? Happy to second. Lovely. Ian seconded. Can we have the vote, please, James?
Chair, that motion's carried.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 11, which is the Knebworth Neighbourhood Plan to be presented by Councillor Ruth Brown.
Thank you, Chair. So essentially what we're looking to agree tonight is that the Knebworth Neighbourhood Plan proceeds to referendum. And this has been followed, there's been a consultation, there's been a lot of involvement with the parish council, and the examiner has recommended that it can go to referendum with modifications. Now, these modifications are much more extensive than had been hoped due to the local plan not having yet been adopted. Essentially, they're things to do with prematurity because of the local plan not being adopted, and things to do with not sufficient evidence. So they are more substantial than we would have hoped. However, the parish council has agreed that they would like it to proceed to referendum with these modifications, and that is because it will provide a framework for decision making, which will put them in a better position than without having a local, in the absence of a local plan, basically. So I would like to move the recommendations. I'm happy to take any questions, or any very technical questions could be addressed to our officers. Thank you.
Great. Any questions for Ruth? Nope. In that case, can I have a seconder, please? Judy can second. And and could we go to the vote, please, James?
Chair, that motion's carried.
Thank you very much. Right. Item number 12 is the Shared Waste Services Governance report, which Councillor Amy Allen is going to present.
There we go. Because of the recommendations for ONS and the amendments, I'm going to present it as I did at ONS, and then go through said amendments. Yes? I don't want to drag this out any more than it has to be. So the Shared Waste Governance, this report seeks to set the scene for the future of waste and street cleansing services across the partnership we have with East Herts Council. The report covers 3 elements: a recommendation to support new aim and principles of the shared service to ensure the shared waste service has clear direction in managing services for the future, a recommendation to support a cross-party joint working group with East Herts Council to explore the strategic direction and design of the waste and street cleansing contract, and a recommendation to support a look at what alternative governance arrangements may be possible for the shared waste service. We know that in the coming years there will be significant legislative changes affecting waste management, and it is prudent for us to ensure our contract and service is fit for purpose for the future. So understandably, in terms of the overall proposals for waste governance, the Joint Waste Committee is just one of a number of options to be explored, and therefore, in light of this, we propose an amendment to recommendation 2.3 to now read that the Cabinet agrees to explore all options for the future governance of the shared waste service, with a further report to Cabinet in due course to consider any proposals. Just want to make clear, the initial phase this is setting up the joint working group to consider alignment of services for the next contract period. The recommendations from the working group will be produced and presented to each authority's cabinet executive for decisions. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions? Ian?
I'm happy to sort of second the recommendations, but also to I think to say that what I think is really good here is in setting up the working group, that what it does is it enables, I think it enables, perhaps for the first time, a wider group of members to become involved in the discussions about our waste services, cross party, and I think that is something that hasn't happened up until now. That's not to say that the officers and executive members haven't done, I think certainly under this administration, I think a really good job and made a real difference. But I think actually having that wider group of members in providing some input there, I think will be of real help and value, and I think will be welcomed across the wider council. So very happy to support this report and the recommendations as set out by Councillor Allen.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ian. Any further questions or comments on this report? Nope. Okay, it's been proposed and seconded. Could we please have the vote, James?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. And then that brings us to item 13, strategic planning matters. Councillor Ruth Brown to present.
Thank you, Chair. So obviously I'm not going to go through the whole report. We've had a chance to read that, but I would like to draw out a few highlights. So firstly, you'll all be aware, I'm sure, that the local plan is still, we haven't had the inspector's report. You will see appended to this item that I did write a letter on the first anniversary of the close of the hearings to ask to the inspector actually to see, try and unblock it. But anyway, we still haven't heard anything. So but what we have done is there's also related to that is the master planning process and to look at the strategic sites in a more holistic way. And we have established a project board, and those terms of reference have now been agreed, and you can see those at Appendix C. So that was the first point. The second point, the Ashwell neighbourhood plan has been approved. A large majority voted in favour at the referendum on the 3rd of March. So that will now that will now be made. And then thirdly, Luton Rising. So obviously the consultation around Luton Airport expansion is quite important to us on the edge of our district. The second round is open until the 4th of April. So we've got a couple more weeks on that. And we will be responding as a council. And the Secretary of State has called in the application for increase of passengers from 18 to 19 million, which was granted by the Luton Borough Council, but that has been called in by the Secretary of State. We're still awaiting that response. And then finally, and this is in under recommendation 2.3, we're asking Cabinet tonight to agree to the interim approach to first homes that's set out in paragraphs 8.31 to 8.35. And this has come to Cabinet because the first homes transitional arrangements end on the 28th of March. And we were hoping that the local plan would have been adopted by then, but as it has not, we have to make other transitional arrangements. We have concerns around the genuine affordability and consequences on affordable housing of this first homes arrangement. And therefore, we are proposing that we make decisions on a case-by-case basis until the local plan is adopted. So those transitional arrangements, which, as I say, are detailed in 8.31 to 8.35, we're asking Cabinet to endorse those. So I'd like to move the recommendations. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, any questions for Ruth? No, can I have a seconder, please? Amy. And can we please move to the vote, James?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Right, that brings us to the end of business for this evening, I believe, unless there's something that I've missed. In which case, thank you very much, everyone, for your time and patience, and I'll see you tomorrow.